Hello. Welcome to my first live. I can't believe I'm actually doing a live reading of my book on YouTube. I only started on YouTube in July, end of July maybe. So to be sitting here today, going live, reading my Christmas book seems a bit surreal to me at the moment. So I hope you will bear with me. There is a few first time nerves going, and if you've ever seen me film one of my YouTube videos, you know how many times I have to retake. So yeah, this will be a massive learning curve for me. So you are all here because today is publication day of Not Just for Christmas, my most recent Christmas book. It's been a bit of a strange day to me for today, I've got to say, because I woke up this morning with a migraine. What a wonderful way to celebrate my book release. So it's been a bit of a slow day, which kind of has helped in a way because I haven't been constantly checking social media and things like that. So I've managed to keep things calm and chilled, for which I'm grateful. So I have managed to celebrate. I've had a curry tonight, and I will, after this, as kind of like a reward for doing this live, I will be having a cream cake and watching Midsummer Murders, which to me is one of the best ways to celebrate anything. So that is what I am going to be doing after this. Excuse me. I have checked Goodreads and Amazon and Apple and all the other vendors, and reviews are already coming in for Not Just for Christmas. Honestly, if you are sitting here and you have read the book and you have left a review for me, you just have to know that I am just so grateful for your words. They mean so much to me. That even that you've picked up the book in the first place means so much, that you're taking the time to actually read my work. But to then go ahead and leave a review, I just can't express how important that is to me. And I'm really pleased with the way that everyone is liking it so far. So hopefully that will continue. So let's talk about the book, shall we? That's why we're all here. So let's talk about it. Not Just for Christmas. There we go. Oh no, it's backwards. That's a shame. I will be I will leave a post somewhere on YouTube afterwards to the right way around, hopefully. Not Just for Christmas is an enemies to lovers Christmas story. It's full of quirky and diverse characters, and they just leap off the page. I feel that they leap off the page. I feel like when I'm writing and I'm in Appleford, the village where it takes place, I'm in Appleford. I'm there with Kate, with Brandon, and all the others as well. It's obviously a cosy Christmas book. So you've got things like Christmas markets. It starts off for Halloween, which is why I chose Halloween as publication day, because 31st, obviously, and I've celebrated that by having a candy apple as well, or a toffee apple if you're in the UK. Excuse me. So yeah, and also the best bit about the book are the fur babies that are in it. So my two main characters have a pet. So Brandon has a dog called Henry, and Kate has a cat called Sue. She is a grumpy three-legged cat that is a complete inspiration for Susan. This is Sue, my special guest. She's also a three-legged grumpy cat. So yeah. Oh, hello, Amanda. She's my CP, my awesome CP, who, to be fair, has been just a part of this book, as I have, and as some of my other readers have been as well. She's given me some invaluable advice over the last few weeks. She loves how both the Halloween and Christmas are celebrated in this book. Yes, I like that as well. When I started writing this, it was important to me to start. All right, Sue, I'll let you go. Hold on. There you go. It was important to me to start it at Halloween because I felt that that's a big celebration just before Christmas, and then we can head straight into Christmas. And I also enjoy Halloween as well, so it felt right to me to start it then. So yeah, so without further ado, I'm going to head into reading the first chapter, but before I do that, I'm going to start by reading the blurb. So, 'tis the season to be jolly, or is it? Kate Marsh has it all. A perfect village to call home, a job she loves, and an adorable, albeit grumpy, three-legged cat. There's only one problem. A developer is set on destroying the face of Appleford forever. Even worse, the face of the company is the charming Brandon Kane, a man Kate finds herself drawn to from their first meeting. Brandon Kane isn't the man Kate thinks he is. He isn't looking to destroy Appleford, only enhance it. With Christmas just around the corner, he is determined to show Kate and the rest of Appleford that he isn't the bad guy. As the holiday season draws near, and much to their friends' and family's delight, Kate and Brandon grow closer, but the question remains, can Brandon prove to Kate that his feelings for her are not just for Christmas? Okay, so, as I say, the first chapter will start with Kate's birthday, which is on Halloween. So I'm reading it off my Kindle. Just to let you know, hopefully there will be, it's only available in ebook at the moment, but there will be some paperbacks in the new year, hopefully. That's the plan. So if you prefer paperbacks, they are coming, hopefully. Okay, so chapter 1, Kate. Kate! I turn at the sound of my name, my smile widening as I spot my best friend, Carrie Swinton, making her way towards me, 2 rum and cokes held aloft, as she makes her way tentatively through the heaving crowd, careful not to spill our drinks. When she reaches me, I take the glass she offers gratefully, only too eager to take a sip. Thanks, I needed that, I gasp, ignoring the fact that my bladder felt like it was about to burst. I thought you looked a bit flushed, she giggled, already more than a little tipsy herself. I shouldn't judge, though. I, too, am a little worse for wear, thanks to the fact that everyone wants to buy me a birthday drink. Really? How can you tell under all this? I ask, pointing at my face. Carrie giggles again. You look like you could be on the stage in Wicked. Before I can answer, my name is called again. Kate Marsh, you've barely said 2 words to me all night. I spin round to find James Mackenzie Thorpe making his way towards me, his gait just a little unsteady now that he's drunk a few beers. His husband, Cal, isn't far behind him, an apologetic look on his face. Kate, I'm sorry. I tried to stop him, Cal begins, his hand on the small of James's back. My grin widens. My 14-year-old self would have given anything for James to be this eager to see me back then. Of course, that had been in the days before either of us knew he was gay. Well, you're going to be disappointed again, I'm afraid, I laugh, handing Carrie my half-finished drink. I really have to pee. And get a moment of peace, I think to myself. Right now, the idea of some alone time, although very much welcomed, seemed practically out of reach. James pouts as I turn back to him. I'll be waiting right here, he promises. I have a little something for you, he adds with a wink. Seriously, there had been a time when that sentence alone, especially coming from James Mackenzie, would have sent my heart into overdrive. Now, though, I just smile, pleased that I'm still lucky enough to call him my friend. Leaving the table, I make my way through the crowd, smiling at everyone, thanking them for coming out. Having lived in Appleford my entire life, I'm never surprised by how much love is always on offer. It's just who we are as a community. Everyone's family, you know. Happy birthday, Katie. I smile at Mabel and Lily Cobb, the sisters who run the village tea rooms, the honey pot, cringing inwardly at the use of my childhood name. I haven't been called Katie since I was about 11, at which point I started telling everyone I was too grown up to be called Katie. Everyone in the village had been only too happy to indulge me. Everyone except Mabel and Lily, who still call me Katie to this day. I think it's a generational thing. My mum waves to me from the table she's sharing with my dad and my sister Sam. She and Dad are dressed as Frankenstein and his wife, while Sam has begrudgingly put on a pair of cat ears I had found for her earlier. I wave back before pushing on, the need to pee becoming more desperate now. Just as I'm doubting whether I'll ever make it to the ladies in time, I stumble out of the crowd in the bar, breathing a sigh of relief as the coolness of the back corridor envelops me. Heading to the toilet, I'm only too glad to shut the door behind me, the noise of the bar, which only a moment ago had been so overwhelming, now fading to a faint murmur. Having relieved myself, I step out of the stall and almost scream at the sight I'm greeted with. When I left the house earlier, I had looked somewhat passable as a witch. Now I look more like a zombie. My green face paint has gone patchy in places, thanks to the heat of the pub. My hat is falling to one side, and I seem to have lost the wart that my darling brother Rob had stuck on the end of my nose with blue tack. I shudder to think that where that might be now. Shrugging, I wash my hands, knowing there's absolutely nothing I can do about the state I'm in. It's not like I'm going to go home and reapply my makeup. After all, I'm surrounded by friends and family who really don't care how I look. They just want me to turn 29 in style. and any hope I had of impressing a guy vanished the moment Adam left me 7 months ago. 7 months and 18 days to be precise. So what am I worrying about? Nodding to myself, I walk back towards the door, pull it open, and crash headlong into a solid wall of flesh that sends me flying back into the door of the toilets. Ow! I cry, just as another voice says, "Why don't you look where you're going?" Clutching my elbow, I blink into the dimly lit corridor, vaguely aware that I'm not alone, although I can't quite see who is standing in front of me because his face is hidden in shadow. I was looking, I spit, trying to ignore the pain now searing down my left arm. But I wasn't expecting some idiot to come bulldozing into me as I was leaving the toilets, was I? There's a moment of silence before the man chuckles quietly. "I suppose I really should say sorry before you hex me." Softening a little at the joke, I look up, taking in the newcomer for the first time. He's about a head taller than me and has a closely cropped beard that really suits him. His dark hair, swept away from his forehead, brushes the back of his dark blue polo neck jumper. "Maybe you should," I agree, straightening up in a bid to seem a little less flustered. Apparently, despite my earlier assumption that there would be no one to impress, it appears I was very much mistaken. And now I'm blushing because it just occurred to me that I'm standing before this handsome stranger and I'm wearing melting green face paint and a witch's hat. Thank God the water's fallen off. The stranger's grin widens, his eyes never leaving mine. "I'm sorry," he says quietly, his eyes twinkling in the half light. To be honest, I can't tell if he's teasing me or if he's genuinely sorry, but I'm quickly finding that I don't care. All I care about right now is keeping his attention on me for just a little bit longer. "Maybe I can buy you a drink," he continues, as if talking to a woman dressed as a witch is the most normal thing in the world. I stutter, unsure of how to respond. I know I need to get back to my friends, but this guy's looking at me with such intensity that I can't help myself, and I find myself nodding. "Sure, why not? I ask. After all, it is my birthday. I deserve a little bit of flirty fun on my birthday, right? I'm Kate, by the way," I add as he holds the door open and we make our way to the bar. "Brandon. Nice name, I think, unable to stop my thoughts drifting to Colonel Brandon from Sense and Sensibility. As if reading my thoughts, Brandon blushes and says, "My mum named me after her favourite Jane Austen character." I laugh. "No way. Colonel Brandon's my favourite character too," I gush. "I mean, Darcy's is fine, but Colonel Brandon was just so honourable and loyal." Now it's my turn to blush. Sorry. I'm a literature geek, I confess, more than a little aware that the drink has loosened my tongue. "I suppose you have to be when you work in a library." Brandon raises his eyebrows. "You work in a library? That's cool." I laugh at his attempt to be polite. "You don't have to say that. I know it sounds boring to most people." Brandon holds my gaze for a moment and leans in towards me, so close that I get a whiff of his aftershave, citrus with a hint of spice. Well, I'm not most people. I swallow nervously, unsure if it was his proximity or the husky tone to his voice that had suddenly made my heart pound. Taking a deep breath, I steady myself against the bar, never more grateful to see the stony face of Patrick Woods approaching. "What can I get you?" Patrick Wood wasn't really one for small talk, granted, but lately he had been even more quiet and aloof than usual. In fact, he never even seemed to crack a smile anymore. I'm not sure why Izzy Carter, his partner and owner of the Greyhound, puts up with him. "A lemonade and I pause, looking at Brandon expectantly. "A pint of lager, please, mate," Brandon finished. With a nod, Patrick sets to work getting our drinks with practiced ease. He and Izzy had been running the pub ever since Izzy had inherited it from her granddad 10 years ago, but it had never bothered him that Izzy's name was above the door. He seemed more than happy to not have the responsibility of the place. Movement from across the bar catches my eye, and I spot Carrie waving frantically at me, signalling between me and Brandon, as if she's playing some kind of chaotic charades. I try to shake my head at her in the vain hope that she won't embarrass me, but it isn't long before she's roping James and Cal into this one-sided game of hers. "Would you excuse me a moment?" I ask, turning to Brandon. A look of surprise crosses his face for a moment, but he quickly recovers. Yes, of course." Smiling, I turn to Patrick. "Just put it on my tab, please, Patrick." Patrick scoffs and mutters something under his breath, which I choose to ignore. The last thing I want is to have an argument with him in front of Brandon. With a final glance and smile at Brandon, I make my way back towards my friends, only to find them pushing their way through the crowds towards me. "Oh my gosh, who's the guy?" Carrie demands, her Northern Irish accent stronger now than it had been when I left her. "And what's he come as?" James Bond, obviously, James gushes, openly staring at Brandon now. I silently thank the powers that be that Brandon isn't looking in our direction. My friends really can be embarrassing sometimes. Of course he's not James Bond, Cal mutters. He's not dressed in a tux. I smile gratefully at him, pleased to have at least one friend who is capable of not drooling over him. Maybe he's a modern day Darcy, Cal continues, taking in the sight of Brandon in a dark blue polo neck and trousers, both of which accentuated his tall, slim frame. Ooh, like Mike Darcy from Bridget Jones's Diary, he adds, brightening at the thought. Come to think of it, he does have a bit of a Colin Firth vibe. James tuts and rolls his eyes. No, he doesn't. He's too short for a start. I roll my eyes exasperatedly. Shut up, you're all as bad as each other, I cry, slapping Cal's arm playfully. Seriously, though, who is he? Carrie asks again. I haven't seen him around here before. I shrug. I don't know, I admit. His name's Brandon. Carrie gasps, grabbing my arm excitedly. Like Colonel Brandon? She asks. As my best friend, she's the only one apart from my mum and sister who knows about my obsession with the literary hero. I nod smugly. His mum named him after Colonel Brandon. No way! Carrie practically loses it at this point, earning strange looks from both James and Cal. Seeing their reactions, she sighs, tugging on their arm. Come on, I'll explain, she tells them, pulling them away from me. Turning back, she points at me, fixing me with a determined stare. This is too good to be true. You better get a date with this guy, you hear? I laugh, shaking my head as I return to Brandon, who is now dutifully minding our drinks. His shoulders loosen when he sees me, and he seems to relax, his gaze softening as our eyes meet. I was beginning to worry, he says. I thought that I had been subtly dumped and you'd made a quick getaway on your broomstick. I laugh at his silly joke. That joke was a little obvious. He cringes. It was, wasn't it? Gazing around, he seems to take in everyone's costumes, his eyes eventually returning to me. So, it seems I've picked quite the night to come here. I didn't realise this was a Halloween party. Well, it is Halloween, I point out. Yeah, I know, but he shrugs. I don't know many pubs that go all out for Halloween. Well, that's Appleford for you. We do everything in style. I can see that, he says, nodding appreciatively as his gaze wanders again, taking in the ghostly fairy lights strung up around the pictures and the menu board, the spider webs hanging from the rafters, and Simon, the trusty old skeleton his granddad had brought out every year, for as long as I could remember, standing in the far corner. Hey, birthday girl. Before I know what's happening, I'm accosted by a vampire, throwing a cape around my shoulders as I move away from the bar. Elliot, stop, I giggle, pushing my friend away. Under the makeup, Elliot Barnes frowns, his vampiric teeth biting into his chin, two thin blood-red pencil marks giving the impression they'd pierced the skin. What's that? He asked, his fake teeth giving him a slight lisp. This is Brandon, I announced, with a slight emphasis on his name. I just hope he gets the message. Oh, hey, Elliot nods in greeting, pulling himself to his full height, which just so happens to be an inch or so taller than Brandon. I notice with some amusement that Elliot seems to be looking up and down as if assessing him. Hello, Brandon says wryly, clearly not appreciating the suspicious look Elliot was giving him. Elliot, Carrie said she wanted to talk to you, I say quickly, knowing Carrie will go along with this. She said something about the school Christmas choir. Elliot sighs, his shoulders slumping in defeat. What, already? Halloween's not even over, he mutters to himself before slouching off, leaving Brandon and I alone again. Sorry about that, I say, glancing at Brandon. Elliot's a friend. I've known him since we were about 5. I leave out the fact that Elliot had had a crush on me for most of our teenage years, a crush that was very much not returned. Now he seemed to be my self-appointed big brother and protector where guys were concerned. It was sweet, but could get a little annoying at times. He's fine, Brandon assures me, taking a sip of his pint. So, he says, raising a questioning eyebrow at me. Birthday girl? I nod. Yep, it's my birthday. Brandon looks around as if seeing the punters for the first time. This isn't just a Halloween party, is it? He asks as the penny finally drops. Nope, this is a time-honoured tradition, I inform him sincerely. Ever since I was old enough to remember, I've always had a fancy dress birthday/Halloween party. I suppose it makes a change from all those people you hear about who have to share their birthdays with Christmas. That's very true, I agree. Well, happy birthday, Kate, he says, his eyes meeting mine as he holds up his glass. Thanks, I murmur as our glasses clink together. So, I begin, the earlier drinks having given me more courage than I would normally have under the circumstances. Are you new here or on holiday? For a moment, Brandon averts his gaze, suddenly finding the beer mat very interesting. Actually, I'm here on business, he replies quietly, still not looking at me. I'm staying in the apple tree, he adds, referring to the bed and breakfast James's mother runs. When he doesn't elaborate, I try again. And what do you do? Brandon shrugs, buying himself a few moments by taking a large swig of his drink before replying. Nothing interesting. It's quite boring, really. I can't help thinking his behaviour is a little strange, but then again, I know not everyone is as happy in their job as I am in mine. Take my sister Sam, for instance. She had hated her job so much that she gave it up and came back home 6 months ago. In fact, she had hated it so much that we've all been banned from talking about it. So you work in a library? Brandon asks, clearly looking to change the subject. Yeah, I nod. Just down the road, in fact. Brandon raises his eyebrows in surprise. There's a library here? At the Ford end of the village, I would confirm. Brandon grins. I'll have to pay you a visit before I leave then. I'm not sure if he meant it to sound flirty, but it did, and the thought of Brandon making a special visit to the library just to see me set the butterflies in my stomach fluttering again. That would be good, I gush, feeling like a teenager. So, I continue, in an effort to sound more like the grown-up 29-year-old I am, do you have any favourite authors? Brandon laughs. I was wondering when the librarian would ask me that. What? I ask, laughing along with him. I have to know. Or are you one of those Philistines who doesn't read? I read, Brandon insists. Actually, I don't have a favourite author, but I do like the Witcher series. Anything in epic fantasy, and I'm there. Oh, then you must read Sebastian de Castell's The Greatcoat series. I've just finished Traitor's Blade and loved it. Well, if you enjoyed that, then you must read. The evening continues like this, both of us sharing our love of books and TV, debating the merit of books to TV adaptations, and we only stop when Izzy rings the bell behind the bar. Come on then, everyone, drink up so Patrick and I can get some beauty sleep, she calls out, earning a few laughs from the regulars. Patrick scowls from where he's cleaning the bar, but says nothing. Joe Morton, the village butcher, nods darkly towards Patrick. Looks like you need more than one night of beauty sleep, he mutters, downing the rest of his pint. Speak for yourself, Joe, Patrick calls after him, glaring at the butcher's retreating back as he makes his way towards the door. Brandon sends a questioning look my way. Something going on between those two? I can't help but smile. They've had a feud going on now for a while, ever since Patrick accused Joe of diddling him out of change. To this day, Patrick swears he gave Joe a 20, but Joe swears blind that he gave him a tenner. And who do you believe? Now that would be telling. I jump off my stool. A quick look around tells me that James and Cal have already left, while Carrie and Elliot are chatting happily with my mum and dad. Brandon looks around the pub. It's like Midsummer Murders with all these battle lines being drawn. Oh, you have no idea, I agree. And you haven't even heard the worst of it. I haven't. I shake my head. Nope. I lean in conspiratorially, glad to see him lean towards me too. There's a meeting in a couple of days about this new housing estate some big shot money grabber wants to build on the outskirts of Appleford, I murmur. Stick around long enough and you'll see some serious battle lines being drawn. Patrick and Joe's feud will be nothing compared to that. Brandon pulls away, nodding. Yeah, I can imagine, he says quietly. Kate, are you coming, darling? I turn to find my mum pulling on her coat, waving at me. Dad is making his way outside, deep in conversation with Elliot. Yeah, sure. Turning back to Brandon, I smile. Well, it was lovely to meet you, Brandon. I cringe inwardly at how ridiculously formal I now sound. A flash of amusement crosses Brandon's face, and he holds out his hand. It was nice to meet you too, Kate. I shake his hand, unsure if he's teasing me, but surprised to find that I don't care if he is. Are you two off, or are you going to stand there all night holding hands? Patrick growls, ruining the moment. Dropping Brandon's hand like it's about to burn me, I glare at Patrick before walking towards the door. Brandon not far behind. My family and friends are already making their way towards the alley by the side of the pub, which will take us home. Well, good night, Kate, Brandon says. Good night, Brandon. I watch him for a moment as he crosses the road, heading across the green to the B&B opposite. Suddenly, my need to talk to Carrie about the wonderful guy I just met becomes too much, and I'm hurrying after my friend. And that is chapter 1 of Not Just for Christmas. So, already in that chapter, you can see that there's definitely some kind of trouble brewing. We've got the housing estate on the outskirts of Appleford that Kate sees it's going to ruin the face of her beloved Appleford village, and Brandon obviously knows more than he is letting on at this point. Excuse me, hold on a sec. Sorry, all that reading, dry throat. Brandon obviously knows something, but he's not saying anything at the moment. So that is a shadow that's going to be hanging over their relationship, the start of this relationship. So we've got, I like Brandon. He has a sense of humour. Brandon does have a sense of humour, and that was, to me, that was very important. Brandon's a man who, on paper, should probably take himself far more seriously than he actually does. And that was why when I wrote this story, I wanted to do like a dual point of view chapter. All of my books so far have been solely from the female main character's point of view. But in this one, I really wanted to get that dual point of view perspective across, because to me, it's important to show Brandon's story as well. So yeah, I did want to show that he had a sense of humour and he's not taking himself too seriously, despite what Kate and everyone else might think. Steve, hello Steve, that's my brother. He says, chapter 2, we want more. If you want more, you're gonna have to buy the book. So all the links are down below this live stream. It is available on Amazon, Google Play, Apple, Kobo. As I say, at the moment it's just ebook, but it will be paperback next year, early next year, hopefully, as well. And I'm also, my nano project this year, you'll be pleased to know, is book 2 of this series. So I've said in our previous YouTube videos that I tend to go from romance to fantasy and then do like a swap, do it alternately. But this time I was so into Appleford and the characters there and the village community that I built, I just wanted to run with this series. So I will complete this series before moving on to anything else at the moment, I think. So yeah, I've planned the whole story for book 2, which will focus on Carrie and Elliot's relationship, and then I will try and do the rest of the series. I like it. I really like the main characters, but Brandon has just the witty vibes I like. Yeah, that was important for me. As I say, I definitely wanted him to be funny and self-deprecating in a way as well. Question from Sean, that's my sister-in-law. Who do you see playing Brandon in real life? Oh, I've actually done on Instagram, I've actually done some posts where I've taken all of the characters. So I did one for Kate's family, one for Brandon, and the people that surround him. And then I've done Appleford residents and Carrie's friends, so Cal, James, and everyone. So Brandon, I would see played by David Oakes in real life. He was in Vikings Valhalla, and I think he played, if I remember correctly, I think he played Earl Godwin. I'm not sure. But yeah, I definitely see him as playing Brandon. Kate would be played by, let me see if I can remember, Daisy Head, who, if you've watched the Shadow and Bone series, that she was Genya in Shadow and Bone. So yeah, they would be the 2 main characters. But if you want to know the rest of the casting, head over to my Instagram, which I will try and link down below. But if not, you will find that on Instagram as Tracy Mayhew author. Okay, so yeah, how old are Luna and Henry? Henry, I imagine being about 8 years old. I don't actually give them an age in the book, but I would say Henry would be about 8 years old, judging by, what there is a story as to how Brandon came to be his owner. I'm not going to obviously say anything here, but taking that all into account, I would say he was about 8, and Luna would be slightly older. I would say 9 or 10 for Luna. She's had a bit of a life, obviously. She's obviously lost a leg. One of the reviews on Goodreads did say that I didn't go into Luna's story, which is true. I don't. I do intend to rectify that in book 3, though, because I think that would make more sense to do it there rather than in book 2. So Luna's backstory is going to come. So if you want to know that, you'll have to stick with the series. So yeah, are there any more questions? Anything anyone wants to ask? I'll give you a couple of minutes just to just to post anything. That was another one. That was my other question. If we will get to know how they got the pets, yes. So yes, you will. In book one, you will learn about Henry's story, and then in book three, sorry, you will learn more about Luna's story. What town is Appleford based on? It's not actually based on any one specific town. So Appleford is based in the Cotswolds, and I would say that it's about it's between Burford, which is a real place in the Cotswolds, and Oxford. So it would be between those. So it's about 30 minutes or so away from Oxford. So that gives, because Brandon is based in Oxford, so he travels to and from, and there's another couple of characters that are also based in Oxford. So that gives them a kind of doable journey that doesn't take too long back and forth. But it's not really based on anywhere. I do a lot of traveling, and recently we did go to the Cotswolds, and it's always been, I've done the Lake District, I've set a series of books in the Lake District, and Cotswolds is one of my other favourite places to visit. So we recently went on holiday there earlier this year, and I was just like, yep, this is where I'm basing it. So when we went, I took a lot of photos from different towns, different villages there, lots of notes and photographs about the buildings and the certain bricks that they use, because they use like the bricks are known as Cotswolds honeystones. So I've sort of tried to incorporate all the things that I love about the Cotswolds into Appleford. And obviously the ford is kind of based on Burton on the Water, because there is a ford at one end of Burton on the Water, which is also a Cotswolds town that I really enjoy. Little writer question, but did the characters or the plot come first? That's an interesting question. I think the plot came first. I knew I wanted to do an enemies to lovers romance, and then a lot of the kind of friction that comes within the village with this housing estate, I kind of like that idea from some Midsummer Murders episodes that I watched. So I thought that would be a kind of good basis to do an enemies to lovers. And then obviously you've got the Kate, who lives in Appleford, who loves it with all her heart, doesn't want to leave it, doesn't want anything to change about it. And then you've got Brandon, who's coming in and seemingly bulldozing over what she loves most about Appleford, and she sees it as quite differently to how it actually is. And she learns that as she goes, as the plot develops. Was any of the characters hard to write or deal with, or were they all well behaved? The hardest character to write for was Luna, because if you know Sue at all, my cat, who's sitting over there sleeping like an angel now, over there in her donut, Luna sleeps in the donut just like that. So that was important to feature that as well for me. But yeah, she was quite grumpy. So when Kate experienced certain problems and she wanted some sympathy from her cat, the cat wouldn't always give her the sympathy she needed or wanted. So yeah, Luna was probably the most challenging to write for. But thinking about book two, actually, I'm finding Elliot. I was finding Elliot quite hard to write for. There was something about him that just wasn't clicking when it came to his point of view chapters for book two. He wasn't difficult to write for in the first book, and this is where I was struggling in the middle of Preptober somewhere. But something clicked in the last few days, and I've been able to write that. So I would say Elliot in book two is certainly proving to be challenging. So that would be interesting to see how his story develops in the next book. What chapter was your favourite to write? Hands down, my favourite chapter to write is the argument scene where Brandon comes to the village to kind of explain his project, and the villagers, I wouldn't say all the villagers are against him, but the village is kind of split in two. So you've got some who value the development and think it's a great idea, and then you've got others who are like more like Kate, who don't want to see any change happening. And yeah, they were my favourite chapters to write. Other than that, another favourite is there's a meeting where they talk about Christmas, what they're going to do in the build up to Christmas as a village, and I really enjoyed doing that as well, because those chapters really kick off the Christmas part of the story. So it was nice to kind of let my imagination go. So think about what kind of activities could this village do in the run up to Christmas. And I have to say, I really enjoyed all of them, and those activities that I chose were kind of inspired by Hallmark movies that I've watched over the years. So this book that very much has Hallmark vibes in it. Um, so yeah, if you like Hallmark Christmas movies, I think you really enjoy this. If I'm not, tooting my own horn too much. I hope Elliot will be nice and not make Nano harder than it is. So do I. Thank you. So do I. As I say, I think something's clicked and we're getting on better now. He's talking to me more and letting me write for him. He's a bit of a closed book in the second book, towards Carrie, and I think he was a bit clammed to clammed shut towards me as well. But I think I managed to kind of open him up a little bit now. When you're writing, do you play out the scene chapter like a film in your head before putting pen to paper? Yes. Sometimes I even have actual conversations out loud. That may make me sound crazy, but sometimes if I've got an idea for a bit of dialogue, I will play that dialogue out in my head, and sometimes I will say it out loud. As I said in my last YouTube video, I think it was my last YouTube video or the one before, sometimes I even talk to Sienna when I'm on a walk, and like have a conversation with her. It's not obviously with her because she can't respond, but it's just nice to speak it out loud sometimes. And then when I write my fantasy books, sometimes if I've got moves that I need if they're in a battle scene and I've got moves that I need to describe, I might actually like act out the swinging motion of a sword or whatever and try and work through some of the language that way. Yeah, so it is good for me to act it out or speak stuff out loud. Yeah. And I always see my stories on the screen in my head. Like, how would this look on screen? I always do that. Yeah. Using your props. Yes, I do sometimes use. I have some replica swords and shields at home, and I do sometimes use those as well. I have a Robert the Bruce replica helmet, and I put that on sometimes. There was a scene in the Book of Legend where Kai puts on a suit of armor for the first time, and part of that, for writing that, I put the Robert the Bruce helmet on my head just to feel how it felt, how heavy it was, and how he might feel having to face the fact that he's having to ride into battle dressed with all this stuff on him. So yeah, sometimes I do write and use my props as well. Do you manage to write everything down when you imagine it? Because I personally still didn't master how to not break the imagining zone by writing it down. I do sometimes. The thing is, if I imagine it and then I don't write it down in some capacity, then I will forget it. I know it always happen loads. I mean, I get ideas when I'm driving to work or I'm in the shower or whatever. So yes, I do try to write it down, because when I don't write it down, I invariably do forget it. I don't necessarily write everything down. I sometimes just write. So if I'm doing a piece of dialogue and something really good comes into my mind, I just write that down. And then I do like an overview, like what might be said, and I just take notes. So I don't worry about writing every single word down, but I get as much down as I can so that I can hopefully come back to it and recall what I've thought about. So yeah, I do try to write it down. And it's not always possible, because sometimes I might be in the middle of teaching or working with children in school, and I don't get to write anything down until lunchtime. So at that point, I'm really hoping that I don't forget anything. But I always make sure wherever I go. Luckily, I haven't packed this, but this will be coming to me. If I'm working tomorrow, this will be coming with me, because this is my series Bible. And so if I think of anything, it will go in here. I do have my blue nano folder as well in my bag, ready to go, but that's usually just notes that I follow, whereas that is notes that I can write down. I don't care how scrappy they look or anything. I have that one for my romance, and I also have this one for when I'm working on my fantasy books. So I like to keep them separate because, well, obviously they're two different genres, so it works better to be separate. But yeah, I do try to write down as much as I can when I can. Doesn't always work out that way, but I try. I don't write it down. I noticed you said not breaking the imagining zone by writing it down. I let it play out in my head first, because I feel like if I've let it play out in my head first, then it's more likely to stick. But once that's happened, if I can write it down straight away, I will. If I have to wait a couple of hours or whatever, I will try and do it as soon as. And sometimes I just forget it and it goes, and I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But yeah, I don't stress out about it though. I used to, but it's not worth stressing out about it. Sometimes you lose that thought because something better is going to come anyway. I've often found that happens, and I'm like, oh, what was I worried about? So yeah. So if you are doing nano tomorrow, I wish you luck. I'm going to be I will be starting nano tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going back to Appleford. It's been a while since I've actually been writing for Appleford, obviously, because this has been ready to publish for like a month now. So I haven't really revisited Appleford in a month. So it will be really good to get back there again. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to do it. I am joining a nano sprint at 9 o'clock in the evening. So hopefully I will be able to stay awake that long. But if you are doing nano, I'm cheering you on. If you're not, happy writing anyway, happy reading as well. Thank you all for coming to this live. I really appreciate you being here. If you've read the book, if you've read Not Just for Christmas and you've reviewed it, I really appreciate it. I really love the fact that you've taken the time to read the book and to leave a few thoughts about it. If you haven't read it yet, if you haven't got it, the links, as I say, are down below, ready for you to go and grab it on your favourite vendor. Now, for me, I am going to take tonight or the rest of the night off. I'm going to watch Midsummer Murders with a cream cake, and I'm going to chill before Nano hits tomorrow. So thanks again for coming, and I will see you again. See you later. Bye.